The September sun was beating down the courtyard of the São Paulo Military Police Academy when Ana Carolina Santos got off the bus that had brought her from Ribeirão Preto. At 23 years old, 1.65 meters tall, and 58 kilos, she knew she was not physically impressive, but his steady hands and determined gaze carried something that most people couldn't see, the determination of someone who had lost everything and was now struggling to find a new purpose. "Hey, princess, are you sure you didn't get lost? The cooking course is in the building next door." Laughter echoed through the courtyard like morning thunder. Sergeant Rodrigo Fernandez, 28, a former rota, chest puffed out and arms crossed, looked up and down at the young woman who had just presented herself for the most difficult course in the corporation. Elite sniper of the military police of São Paulo. Ana looked around and saw 12 men, all between 25 and 35 years old, all with previous military experience, all looking at her as if it were a joke. The military police's Special Operations Instruction Center was not known for its diversity. In 15 years, no woman had ever tried the course. "With this fragile little body, you won't even be able to carry the rifle, let alone hit something at 800 meters, Rodrigo continued, while the other candidates had fun. "Look guys, our first casualty before the course starts. I bet she gives up by Friday." João Silva, an Army veteran with 2 missions in Haiti, laughed nervously. "Dude, take it easy. Maybe she's good." Pedro Oliveira, a former rota with 10 years of experience, shook his head. "João, be realistic. This is no joke. A sniper operation is life or death." Ana kept her gaze steady, feeling each word like a stab. She knew that moment would come. Ever since she decided to enlist, she had heard the same song. "A woman's place is not on the battlefield. You're too beautiful to get dirty like that. Why don't you become a military nurse?" "Sergeant Fernandez," she replied in a calm voice, controlling every tone. "I'm here because I've passed all the required physical and psychological tests. My number is 47,092. I am registered and I have authorization from the General Command." Rodrigo approached, intimidating her with his physical presence. "Listen, young lady. This is not a course for participation medals. Here you either kill or die. And you can barely hold a .380 pistol, let alone a 15-pound rifle." The silence was tense. Everyone expected her to scream, cry, or give up. Ana discreetly touched the small object in her pocket, a military brooch that meant everything to her. "Sergeant, I didn't come to discuss whether I should be here. I came to become a sniper. If I want to test my capabilities, I'll be ready when it officially starts." The Special Operations Training Center wasn't just an academy, it was a temple of military excellence. Located in the Serra da Cantareira, it housed the most rigorous training in the country. Shooting ranges up to 100 meters, urban simulators, killing house, observation towers. There, the PM forged its most lethal warriors. Ana Carolina came from a simple family in Ribeirão Preto. Mechanic father, teacher mother. Nothing indicated that she would become a candidate for sniper. During her childhood, it was normal. She played with dolls, loved to draw, dreamed of being a veterinarian. Everything changed at the age of 15 when his brother Junior decided to enlist in the army. Junior was the pride of the family, intelligent, courageous, always protecting his younger sister. When he left for Rio, designated to fight drug trafficking in the favelas, he was overjoyed. "Ana," he said, handing over his nameplate, "keep it. When you come back, you give it back to me." Junior never returned. 3 months later, 2 officers visited the Santos family. "We are sorry to inform you that Private Antonio Santos Jr. was killed in combat in Complexo do Alemão. He died serving Brazil with honor." Ana was 15 when her world collapsed. Junior was not just a brother. He was a hero, protector, best friend. The pain was devastating, but worse was the injustice. He had died protecting innocence, trying to improve the world. During high school, Ana got lost. Grades dropped. He moved away from his friends, questioned everything. Why study if good people died young? His parents were destroyed by the loss. The change came last year when she enrolled in a shooting school. The teacher, Sergeant Moreira, retired, noticed something special. "Ana, you have steady hands and a clinical eye. Have you ever thought about taking it seriously?" For the next 2 years, he dedicated himself completely to shooting. He discovered natural talent, exceptional coordination, perfect respiratory control, superhuman concentration, and emotional coolness under pressure. He won regional and state championships, competed nationally. It was at a competition in Sao Paulo that he met Sergeant Carlos Lima, an elite instructor of the military police. "Girl, you have the potential for much more than shooting. Have you ever thought about serving the country?" The seed was planted. Ana researched a military career, elite courses, how to use her talent to make a difference. Slowly, a plan was formed. She would become a sniper to Honor Jr. He would protect families, save lives, continue his work. He studied physical education at USP not by vocation, but knowing that physical preparation would be fundamental. During college, he continued in university shooting, always improving. At the same time, he studied weapons, ballistics, military tactics. He prepared himself meticulously. His parents did not understand when he announced the enlistment. "Ana, you have a future ahead of you. Why waste it?" questioned the mother. The father was blunt. "Do you want to end up like your brother?" But Ana was decided. He had found his purpose. During basic training at the military police, he excelled in everything: physical preparation, discipline, technical knowledge, leadership. Instructors noted iron determination that went above and beyond the call of duty. When they opened registration for snipers, it was the first. He passed all the tests with exceptional grades: psychological evaluation, physical examination, motor coordination, knowledge about weapons. He was among the first in all of them. What no one knew was that Ana had carried Junior's plaque since she was 15. Small piece of metal with name, identification, and blood type. For her, it was more than a souvenir. It was a symbol of the promise to her dead brother. "Recruits," shouted Captain Mendez, drawing attention. "For 3 months, they will learn to master the Imbel 7022, caliber .308 Winchester. This rifle eliminates targets at more than 1,000 meters, but remember, the gun is an instrument. The real power is here." He tapped his forehead. "And here," he added, touching his heart. The 13 candidates lined up in the main field. The captain continued. "Course lasts 12 weeks, at least 8 will be eliminated. Of the rest, only 3 best will receive assignment to real operations." Ana watched her companions. Each one had motivations. Rodrigo wanted to impress superiors. João dreamed of special operations. Pedro channeled urban experience. Marco sought to stand out despite his youth. Ana carried a different weight. He was not there to impress, build a career, or seek recognition. He was about to honor a silent promise made in front of a coffin covered by the Brazilian flag on a rainy September morning, 8 years earlier. "The first exercise will be now," Mendez announced. "Shooting at 300 meters, static target, 5 shots. Last place is automatically eliminated." Ana took a deep breath, remembering the coach. "You don't shoot with anger or fear. He shoots with purpose. And purpose is always stronger than emotion." The Cantareira shooting range was in absolute silence. Only wind in the eucalyptus trees and distant helicopters from the military police broke the tension. A sun of 32 degrees created heat waves that distorted the view, another complicating variable. Ana was last in line, a position that Rodrigo had suggested so that she could see how real men shoot. But Ana preferred to observe them all beforehand. This would give information about wind, light, and equipment. "John Doe, you are first," the sergeant announced. João addressed the line with firm steps. A veteran of Haiti, he had experience in real combat, but always with automatics at close range. Long precision shooting was new territory. First shot, 8 points. Solid in the chest off-center. Second, 9 points. Third, 7 wind deflected the projectile. Fourth, 10 points, absolute center. Fifth, 8 points. Total, 42 points. Solid result, Silva. Pedro Oliveira came next. Rhoda at the age of 10, used to street pressure. First, 10 points perfect. Second, 9. Third, 7. Fourth, 8. Fifth, 10 again. 44 points. Excellent, Oliveira. Other candidates made attempts ranging between 30 and 40 points. Antonio Costa surprised with 46, assuming temporary leadership. Then came Rodrigo Fernandez. He addressed the line with characteristic arrogance. "Guys, pay attention to how it's done," he commented loudly for Ana to hear. But something was different. Maybe the pressure to prove your words. Hands normally steady in operations seemed shaky. First, 6 points. Mediocre, causing murmurs. Second, 8 points. Better, but far from the promised excellence. Third, 4 points almost outside the silhouette. Rodrigo was visibly nervous. The pressure of having ridiculed Anna took its toll. Fourth, 5 points. Fifth, barely touching the edge. Total, 25 points, the sergeant announced with disappointment. Embarrassing silence. Rodrigo had achieved the worst result, a cruel irony considering the initial arrogance. Ana Carolina Santos, your turn. The moment anticipated for months had arrived. Ana went to the line while everyone watched. For the first time, tension was different. The collective expectation of seeing if the single woman would be humiliated or remain competitive. Come on, princess, murmured Rodrigo bitterly. Show how he shoots with painted nails. Ana did not answer. He positioned himself with professional calm demonstrated from the beginning. He picked up the rifle, noticing subtle differences from the sporting guns. Slightly different weight, specific sight, trigger with different weight. For 3 minutes he observed and calculated. Wind direction by the flag, intensity by the eucalyptus leaves, solar angulation, soil texture to absorb the retreat. Are you going to shoot today or tomorrow? Teased Rodrigo again. Ana continued to ignore it. I had learned that emotional control was as important as technique. It was focused on observations and calculations. He finally took a stand, adjusted the stock perfectly, found the ideal position for elbows, aligned the body to absorb recoil efficiently, controlled breathing. Inhale, partially exhale, hold, pull the trigger in the natural pause. First shot, bang. Different sound, drier, precise. 10 points. Perfect absolute center. Murmurs between candidates. Absolute center on the first shot was rare. Second shot, 10 points. Absolute center. Complete silence now. Third, Ana paused, feeling a change in the wind. He waited for the gust to pass. 10 points. Absolute center. John whispered to Peter. 3 in a row is impossible. Fourth shot. Pressure was hers now. Everyone knew that he was doing something extraordinary. Ana closed her eyes, discreetly touched her brother's sign, repositioned herself. 10 points. Absolute center. Deafening silence. 4 perfect in a row was something that few could achieve in the laboratory. Fifth, Ana knew she was making history. 5 absolute centers would be a record for the first day, but pressure could turn glory into humiliation. He took a deep breath, remembered the coach. The last shot is the most important, not because it's worth more, but because it's what people will remember. He took a stand last time. The wind stopped completely, as if nature held its breath. Ana lined up aim, controlled her breathing. At the perfect moment, pulled the trigger gently. Bang. 10 points. Perfect absolute center. Total 50 points. Maximum score. The next silence was one of involuntary respect. Ana had made 5 consecutive hits in the absolute center, something most had never seen. Second week brought radical change, finding out who maintained accuracy when exhausted. The test would be devastating. 20 kilometers through the Serra da Cantareira carrying 20 kilos, including a rifle. At the end, without rest, 5 shots at 500 meters. For Ana, who weighed 58 kilos, 20 kilos represented 34% of her body weight. João, 85 kilos, would carry only 23%. Significant mathematical disadvantage. "This is a march, not a race," shouted Captain Mendez. "Whoever arrives first does not earn points. Whoever arrives last without being able to shoot will be eliminated." The first 5 kilometers were comfortable. Candidates talked, made jokes. Ana controlled her breathing rhythm and weight distribution. 8th kilometer in the dense forest changed everything. Uneven terrain, low branches forcing constant bending, intense heat and humidity. Ana demonstrated the first advantage. While tall men bent over constantly expending energy, she maintained a natural posture. In the 10th kilometer, a steep climb of 200 meters, Rodrigo decided that it was his opportunity to regain prestige. "Come on, guys, we can't let a little climb get us down." He started an unsustainable pace up the mountain, trying to leave Ana behind. Ana kept her own pace, ignoring provocation. I had learned that resistance was not explosive speed, but sustainability. At the top, Rodrigo had gained 100 yards of lead, but he was noticeably more exhausted, breathing heavily and sweating excessively. The next 5 kilometers on stony terrain favored technique over strength. Ana stood out subtly. Experience in university trekking had taught her to read terrain, distribute body weight, Choose ideal support points. 15 kilometers brought stream crossing and technical climbing of 15 meters. First stream with ice water at knee height. Anna observed the pattern of the current, chose a longer route but with safe supports, crossed without incident, keeping equipment dry. In the climb, Rodrigo attacked the wall with excessive aggressiveness. Combination of fatigue and haste resulted in uncoordinated movements. Halfway, he was exhausted, shivering on a small ledge. Anna planned every move before she started. He distributed the weight of the backpack so as not to affect the center of gravity, chose a route that minimized effort on the arms, climbed at a pace that allowed him to maintain energy to the top. She arrived less exhausted than most men, including Rodrigo. The last 5 kilometers were a test of mental endurance. Fatigue was widespread. Equipment seemed to weigh twice as much. Anna kept a steady pace, controlling breathing and hydration methodically. When they arrived at the shooting range, everyone was visibly exhausted. Exactly the condition Mendez wanted. Soldiers at the limit having to demonstrate operational capacity. "Now you will find out why physical endurance is important," announced the instructor sergeant, resting in contrast to the state of the candidates. 5 shots, 500 meters, free position, without fixed support. Less than 3 hits on the silhouette means elimination. Block 3, psychological pressure. Week 3 introduced psychological warfare. Of the initial 12 candidates, only 9 remained. 3 eliminated for failures in previous tests. Starting this week, Mendez announced on a cold morning, they will face the most difficult thing, psychological pressure. In real operations, they will not shoot at paper targets. They will shoot humans, life or death, with civilians nearby under extreme time pressure. First test, shooting at 600 meters while playing sounds of real operations through loudspeakers. Screams of the injured, explosions, bursts, sirens. Deafening volume simulating urban combat chaos. Juan went first. A veteran with real experience, he believed he was prepared. But when loudspeakers exploded, concentration fragmented. 5 shots later, only 2 marginal hits. Pedro got 3 hits. Marcos was emotionally devastated by the screams, managing only 1 hit before leaving crying. One by one, they faced the test with substandard results. Rodrigo approached, determined to prove his worth, but sounds of combat transported him to traumatic rota operations. He panicked, hands shaking uncontrollably. On the 3rd shot, he dropped his rifle and ran away. Episode of post-traumatic stress, Mendez commented clinically. Finally, Anna. She positioned herself with usual calm but internally nervous. I had never heard real combat. When loudspeakers exploded in cacophony, he felt the urge to move away. So he did something different. Instead of fighting the sound, he decided to use it. He closed his eyes and turned auditory chaos into motivation. Each scream reminded her of why she was there, to become able to save people in exactly those situations. He thought of Junior, killed, trying to protect civilians. It transformed the pain of sound into determination, chaos into purpose. First shot in the middle of the confusion, absolute center. Second, 10 points again. Third, loud explosion almost broke concentration, but maintained focus. Fourth, I was entering a state of mind never experienced, as if sound were a protective wall. Fifth, perfect absolute center. 5 hits in the absolute center during a test that had devastated all the others. "How did you do it?" asked John afterwards. "I'm a veteran of peacekeeping missions and I couldn't concentrate. I turned sound into motivation. Every scream reminded me why I'm here." The last week arrived with only 5 candidates: Ana, Juan, Pedro, Antonio, and Jose. Each one had demonstrated technical excellence, physical and mental endurance, team capacity. Now they would face the most brutal test, a 72-hour operation in extreme conditions. "Congratulations on making it this far," Mendez said on a foggy October morning. "You are the best candidates this course has produced. But being a sniper is not about hitting controlled targets. It is to maintain operational capacity for days, hostile territory, limited resources, without support. The final mission. Each candidate would be inserted individually in an area of 50 square kilometers in the Serra, 5 kilometers apart from each other. They would have 72 hours to navigate to a specific point, establish a firing position, wait for a target that would appear at an unspecified time. For 72 hours, he continued, Only equipment they carry: rifle, basic ammunition, minimum survivability, food for 3 days, 3 liters of water. No resupply, no radio contact except medical emergencies, no second chance. Especially challenging conditions. Forecast of 3 days of heavy rain and temperatures close to zero during the early hours. Survival tests that could cause hypothermia, dehydration, physical collapse. The target will appear only once, at a random time for 72 hours, will remain visible for a maximum of 30 seconds, positioned between 800 and 1200 meters from their positions, explained the sergeant. Whoever neutralizes the target passes. Whoever makes a mistake or is not ready is eliminated. Anna felt goosebumps unrelated to the cold. 3 days alone in the woods, constant rain, keeping equipment running, ready for perfect shooting at any time for 72 hours. It tested absolute limits of human endurance. Soldado Santos, Lima 7 coordinate insertion. Firing point, elevation 847, Oscar 3 coordinate. Distance, 12.3 kilometers through mountainous terrain. Time limit, 18 hours. 12 kilometers seemed manageable, but across the mountain carrying full equipment, in heavy rain, arriving at a specific position with absolute precision, would be one of the most difficult things he had tried. At 6:00 a.m. on a rainy Monday, Anna was inserted by helicopter into Lima 7, clearing in the middle of the dense forest. Pilot barely waited for her to disembark before taking off, leaving her completely alone in a forest that stretched for miles in all directions. Overwhelming silence. After weeks surrounded by candidates and instructors, solitude was as psychologically challenging as any physical aspect of the mission. Rain started before she finished organizing equipment. It was not light drizzle, but intense tropical rain that soaked everything in minutes. Anna set up a makeshift shelter and waited for the intensity to subside before starting navigation. While waiting, he methodically checked equipment. Imbel 7022 rifle packed in waterproof canvas, 50 .308 cartridges in sealed containers, compass, emergency GPS, survival kit, concentrated food for 3 days, 3 liters of water. Total weight, 28 kilos. Under normal conditions, it would be challenging but manageable. Under constant rain, through uneven mountainous terrain with a running timer, it would be brutal. At 8:30 a.m., rain decreased to persistent drizzle. Anna started navigation using compass and topographic landmarks identified on the map. First section, 5 kilometers through dense forest with a difference of 300 meters. Terrain was treacherous. Waterlogged soil had made trails slippery. Bare roots created ankle traps. Low branches laden with water wet anyone who passed underneath. Anna adopted a conservative but constant rhythm. I had learned through years of trekking that adverse conditions required patience, not speed. Every step was calculated, every movement evaluated to conserve energy. Around 2 p.m., he reached the first landmark, a stream that ran at the base of a deep valley. According to the map, he had to follow him for 2 kilometers to a natural stone bridge where he would cross to the opposite bank. Stream was much higher due to the rain, strong and dangerous current. Anna spent an hour looking for a safe crossing point, finally finding an area where fallen trees formed a makeshift bridge. The crossing was tense. Wet logs were slippery. The current down the stream was strong enough to drag someone who fell. Anna slowly walked through, testing each support before transferring weight completely. On the other side, the steepest climb of the day began. 600 meters of elevation difference in 3 kilometers. With wet equipment weighing more than normal, it was a severe test of physical endurance. During the climb, the weather worsened dramatically. Rain returned with full intensity. Strong wind made trees sway dangerously. Temperature dropped to close to zero. Anna stopped at a natural shelter formed by protruding rocks and set up an improvised camp. It would be dangerous to continue sailing in near-storm conditions, especially with a tight timer that could force reckless decisions. She spent the night awake, alternating between checking equipment and keeping warm. Temperature dropped to -2 degrees during the night. Even with proper survival gear, cold was pervasive and exhausting. Morning brought marginal improvement. Rain decreased to persistent drizzle. Wind moderated. Temperature rose to close to zero. Anna resumed navigation at the first lights. The last few kilometers were through rocky terrain to elevation 847. GPS coordinates indicated that it was nearby, but locating the exact firing position would require careful reconnaissance of the area. At 4:30 p.m., on Tuesday, 34 hours after insertion, Anna located a designated position, rocky outcrop with an unobstructed view of the valley below where the target would appear. Position was tactically perfect, excellent natural camouflage, multiple escape routes, protection from the elements. Anna set up hide, camouflaged shooting position, using natural materials and military equipment. For the next 38 hours, she maintained constant surveillance. Target could appear at any time, remain visible only 30 seconds. I couldn't sleep more than 20 minutes straight. I couldn't relax completely. I had to be ready for perfect shooting instantly. It was the most mentally challenging part. Absolute loneliness, constant rain, piercing cold, food dwindling, rationed water. But worse was the psychological pressure of knowing that 72 hours of suffering would be wasted if she wasn't ready at the right time. On Thursday afternoon, 67 hours after insertion, Anna was at the physical and mental limit. The deadline was 5 hours away when movement in the valley caught his attention. Through the telescopic sight, he saw a human figure emerge from a camouflaged position 1,150 meters below the target. Anna had to calculate quickly. Exact distance, strong side wind due to the storm, steep downward angle, wet projectile, rifle that had not been tested for 3 days. But she was ready. 72 hours of mental and physical preparation converged at that moment. He adjusted his sights for distance, compensated for wind, controlled breathing. The target began to move. Anna had seconds before he disappeared again. He inhaled, partially exhaled, held his breath. At the perfect moment between heartbeats, he pulled the trigger. The shot echoed through the valley like lonely thunder. The echo of the gunfire had just dissipated when Anna's emergency radio cracked for the first time in 3 days. Alpha position, confirm target status, came the controlled voice of the observer. Anna kept her eyes on the telescopic sight, noting the position where the target had been moments before. Through the rain and the distance of 150 meters, he could see a figure motionless on the ground exactly where he had aimed. Target neutralized, she reported on the radio, her calm voice contrasting with the whirlwind of emotions she felt. Accurate shot confirmed. Visual confirmation of the observer. Target eliminated with absolute accuracy. Soldier Santos, mission accomplished with excellence. For the first time in 72 hours, Hannah allowed herself to relax completely. The relief was overwhelming. Not only to have landed a technically challenging shot, but to have survived the most brutal test he had ever faced. She spent the next 20 minutes carefully dismantling her firing position, collecting equipment and preparing for extraction. Even with the mission accomplished, he maintained military discipline until the end. The helicopter arrived an hour later, landing at a clearing 200 yards from its position. Anna ran through the rain carrying equipment, feeling for the first time in days that she was truly free from the constant pressure of the mission. On the flight back to base, she learned from the pilots that only 2 of the final 5 candidates had managed to neutralize their targets, she and João Silva. Peter had been wrong by 6 inches due to the wind. Antonio had not been able to locate his firing position in time. Jose had suffered hypothermia on the 2nd night and had been evacuated for medical attention. Of 13 candidates who started the course 3 months earlier, only 2 had managed to pass all the tests. Back at the gym, Anna was immediately taken for medical attention. A complete physical examination, evaluation of hypothermia, treatment for minor cuts and mild dehydration. Physically, he was in surprisingly good condition considering the 72 hours he had spent. Psychologically, she felt transformed. She was no longer the young woman from Ribeirão Preto who had arrived 3 months earlier trying to prove that she deserved to be there. She was a professional who had faced the most rigorous tests in the country and emerged victorious. The graduation ceremony was held a week later, on a sunny morning that contrasted dramatically with the conditions they had faced during the final test. Only 2 people would receive the official designation of elite sniper of the military police of São Paulo, Ana Carolina Santos and João Silva. Captain Mendes, who had observed hundreds of candidates during his career, made a speech that Ana would never forget. Soldier Santos e Silva, you represent the best of the São Paulo military police. They demonstrated not only exceptional technical competence, but also the physical and mental endurance required to operate in the most extreme conditions. He paused, looking directly at Ana. Soldier Santos, your performance set new standards for this course. In 20 years of training snipers, I have never seen such a rare combination of technical precision, physical endurance, and mental fortitude. You will be an example for future generations of candidates. When Anna received her official insignia, a small gold pin representing telescopic sight over a crossed rifle, she immediately thought of the nameplate she carried in her pocket. Junior would have been proud. After the ceremony, João approached her with a genuine smile. Anna, it was an honor to go through this by your side. You deserve to be here more than any of us. Even some of the eliminated candidates came to greet her. Pedro Oliveira, who had failed the final test by centimeters, was especially gracious. Anna, you taught us that determination and technique are more important than physical strength. Congratulations. The most surprising was Rodrigo Fernandez, who had returned to the gym for the ceremony despite being eliminated weeks earlier. He approached her hesitantly, clearly struggling with wounded pride. Saints, he said finally, excuse me for the first few days. You proved me completely wrong. She's a better soldier than I'll ever be and a better person than I deserve to know. Anna accepted the apology with grace, without rancor or arrogance. Rodrigo, we all make errors of judgment. The important thing is to learn from them. The following week, Anna received her first official assignment, to join the elite team responsible for high-risk operations in Greater São Paulo. It would be based on the GATE, Special Tactical Actions Group, working directly with the most specialized units of the military police. His first briefing was about a hostage rescue operation at a school occupied by criminals, exactly the kind of situation he had prepared for during 3 months of intensive training. As she studied the details of the mission, Anna discreetly touched her brother's nameplate that she still carried in her pocket. Junior, she whispered, now I can protect other families like ours. The moral of the story was clear and powerful. Competence has no gender, age, or social origin. It only has dedication, purpose, and excellence. Anna had not won because she was a woman or despite being a woman. He had won because he was exceptional in everything that mattered to the job. The story of Ana Carolina Santos shows us that true limits are not imposed by others, but by ourselves. She didn't have to shout louder or diminish anyone to prove her worth. It just got better, day after day, test after test, until no one could question his competence. In a world that still questions the ability of women in certain professions, Anna proved that excellence is the only language that really matters. She transformed every doubt into motivation, every obstacle into an opportunity for growth, every challenge into a chance to honor the memory of those she loved. If this story inspired you, it's because you also carry within you the potential to overcome limitations that others try to impose. Maybe you're a woman facing prejudice at work. Maybe it's someone from humble beginnings trying to get where they never imagined you would go. Or maybe it's simply a person who needs to be reminded that competence and determination always trump stereotypes. Leave a comment telling your own story of overcoming. Subscribe to the channel to follow more real stories of Brazilians who broke barriers and set new standards of excellence. Next week, you'll meet Maria Silva, the first woman to command a large-scale maritime rescue operation in Brazil. A story that proves that leadership and courage have no gender either. Share this video with someone who needs to be reminded. The limit of our potential is not defined by others, but by our own determination to overcome any obstacle. Strength has no gender, it has a purpose.